So again, just like the Thatcher Demko video we made yesterday, this is not an idea that I think is going to happen, nor is it something that I think you should believe is realistic in the slightest as well, but the reason we're talking about this is because somebody in the NHL media sphere, who is a pretty notable name amongst Canadiens fans, and I'll be honest, Canucks fans alike too, said this on air to the point that it's actually getting written about, and now we're talking about it here on YouTube as well. Let's go over what Maxim Lapierre said. And yes, that is a throwback, a blast to the past to one of the Habs of yesteryears and one of the Canucks of yesteryears as well. Maxim Lapierre, even though he was a Montreal Canadien, I will always remember him as the guy who scored the 1-0 game-winning goal in Game 5 against the Boston Bruins in the Vancouver vs. Boston Stanley Cup Final Series in 2011. Unfortunately, the rest of the finals was cancelled after that Game 5, and we just didn't get a cup winner that year, which really does sting. It's so unfortunate that the NHL just decided to can the entire final series after the Canucks took a 3-2 lead, right? But either way, Maxim Lapierre is a Canadiens alumni. A lot of people are familiar with his body of work, and he had himself a segment on TVA Sports recently where he said this. Former Montreal Canadien believes the club could acquire the second overall pick, too. This article was published on June 6 by Marco D'Amico on Montreal Hockey Now, and if you take a look at what was said by Lapierre on the TV broadcast, it's highlighted here. TVA Sports and former Canadiens player Maxim Lapierre suggested the Canadiens should do everything in their power to make a big splash with the NHL draft at home by selecting both Wright and Slafkovsky first and second. With the draft in Montreal this year, you need to make a splash. You have to go for the home run and get the first 2 picks, said Lapierre during the first intermission of the Lightning Rangers game on Sunday. I know it'll be complicated, but the team has a late first-round pick at 26 and another at the start of the second round, 33rd. Trading that, along with a few veterans to the Devils, who already have a ton of youngsters, would ensure the Canadiens don't make a mistake at the top of the draft. Lapierre believes the Montreal Canadiens could likely get a deal done by offering some of the veterans on the roster, with the exception of a few notable untouchables. You have the pieces to make a deal work, so why not give it a try? You offer any player the Devils want outside of Suzuki, Caulfield, and Romanov to get the second overall pick. Now, firstly, I just want to say it's kind of interesting to me how Alexander Romanov is in that boat with Caulfield and Suzuki. I don't know about you, but I really was not too impressed by Romanov in his 2021-2022. I know he's still young. I know he's got a lot more to prove at the NHL level, but still, just based off of what we've seen so far, I'm not really too sure if I'm 100% comfortable labeling Romanov in that same Suzuki and Caulfield territory. But Maxim Lapierre's point is this. Anybody except for that Suzuki and Caulfield, you go out there and you call New Jersey, you say, hey, you guys are moving the second overall pick, what's it gotta take because we've got some assets. Whether that's Josh Anderson, Brendan Gallagher, I don't know, any of the other prospects the team has. I mean, I guess you could say Mailloux or Caden Cooley or other first-round talents the Canadiens have because they weren't included in Maxim Lapierre's little assessment of the team. Also talk about the late first the Canadiens got, talk about the first from the Ben Sherratt trade, talk about the first from the Toffoli trade. Just do everything in your power to get the second overall pick. And honestly, it's a great idea in theory, but as this article goes out there and talks about, straying away from the Maxim Lapierre comments, this is Marco D'Amico going out there and writing his own little sentiment, the Montreal Canadiens just don't have what the Devils want. Although the Habs do have a few draft picks they can dangle along with some veterans on the roster, the fit doesn't seem to be there for these two teams. Montreal Hockey Now has received word from NHL sources that Devils GM Tom Fitzgerald is not interested in some of the Canadiens' most tradable veterans like Dvorak or Jeff Petrie. He's looking for a top-line player or defenseman in any trade for the second overall pick. It's why we've been talking about names like JT Miller, we've been talking about Kevin Fiala, other names that have been entering the block include Alex DeBrincat, etc. These are all a lot better players than the guys the Montreal Canadiens could realistically give up in a second overall swap, and I don't think that's disputable at this point. I mean, look, Kevin Fiala was over a point per game, JT Miller had 99 points, Alex DeBrincat had 40 goals. Christian Dvorak is not at that level, I'm sorry. And so even though, from Maxim Lapierre's perspective, it would be easy to just say, okay, here, New Jersey, take Josh Anderson. No, you don't want that? Okay, here, take the first from the Toffoli trade. Okay, you don't want Anderson in the first? Here's a prospect, Hayden Cooley. Okay, you don't want those three? Here's a second-round pick. Okay, you don't want that? We'll add on another pick, and we'll add on some more, and we'll add on and add on and add on until you say yes. It's so easy to go the franchise mode route and just do that, but we all know that that's not realistically going to happen in any NHL trade, so I don't really think it's possible to say that that's going to happen here, especially for a second overall pick. There's furthermore a bigger assessment by Marco D'Amico talking about what the Devils actually need, but unfortunately, if Caulfield and Suzuki are off the table, as they rightfully should be, there isn't much of a basis for a trade involving both teams for such a high draft pick. But I also wanted to go all MCU on you. What if it actually happened? What if the Montreal Canadiens had the first and second overall pick in the NHL draft? Now, I'm no NHL historian, but I don't think that's ever happened before. There have been teams that held both the first and second overall spots in a draft, albeit for different amounts of time. The Vancouver Canucks in 1999 at one point had the first overall pick, at another point they had the second and third overall pick, all within the same few hours, because Brian Burke was pulling heaven and earth to try to get the Sedins on his squad. It ended up working after Brian Burke traded the first overall pick to Atlanta with the guarantee that the Thrashers would not select one of Hank or Dank, which is why the Canucks ended up getting those two guys at the top of the 99 draft. But this is a completely different situation. This is an NHL team saying, hey, we want the number one guy, we want the number two guy, let's unite Wright and Slafkovsky and forever link them for the rest of their hockey lives. And I'll just say this right here, if it works out, if both Wright and Slafkovsky fulfill their potentials, then all of a sudden you have yourselves what is probably one of the most stacked forward cores the NHL will ever see heading into the late 2020s with Caulfield, Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Wright. It's kind of too good to be true, isn't it? Like, if you have three 40-goal guys in Cole Caulfield, Shane Wright, and Slafkovsky, plus maybe Nick Suzuki getting 30, as well as 50 assists from that guy, the team could be really good. It's just, what would you be sacrificing in that kind of trade to make it work? And as we have noted, it doesn't really appear that the Canadiens have anything that the New Jersey Devils would realistically want in a trade for their second overall pick. You gotta remember, the Devils should be a little bit more lenient on trade offers for this draft pick because they weren't that bad in the regular season. This was a team that was given a second overall pick due to the ping pong lottery balls. They did not finish that poorly. They just won a lottery. So this is like a get out of jail free card. This is some extra value being added on top of their squad. So they should be a little bit more liberal, I would say, when it comes to trading that pick away. It's just, as Marco D'Amico is highlighting, I don't really think Montreal could be that team, even though Maxim Lapierre goes out there and says that it should be. So talk to me in the comments all your thoughts about this idea. If you're a New Jersey Devils fan, is there anything from Montreal that you could muster up in a package of some sorts that you would actually accept for the second overall pick that does not include Suzuki or Caulfield? It's really tough to do a trade like this without just going all franchise mode and adding on extra seconds and extra firsts and all that. And at that point, it doesn't really feel like it would be worth it if you're trading away like 5 second-round picks, a first, and Josh Anderson for a second overall pick, right? It doesn't really seem like something the Canadiens would realistically do. But if you're a Devils fan, I want you to crack the code for me. Is there anything, any sort of package that you would be okay with in this situation? Because I honestly don't think there would be. If you're a Montreal Canadiens fan, do you like Maxim Lapierre's idea of trading for the second overall pick too? Making a splash because, hey, the draft is in Montreal, let's get both Wright and Slafkovsky. Shut up all the haters, shut up Grant McCagg, we'll get both of these guys. Heck, we could even go Wright and Cooley if you really want to go out there and say that because you want more centers on your team. I don't really know if that's a conversation that too many people would be on board with, but honestly, I thought it was interesting enough to talk about here on the YouTube channel, which is why we kind of made a video about it. But Devils fans, Canadiens fans, talk in the comments your thoughts about the second overall pick. Could you see this pick heading over to the Habs? And if so, what is the package that would get that done for you? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.